dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of colitas rising up through the air. Up ahead in the distance, I saw a shimmering light. My head grew heavy and my sight grew dim. I had to stop for the night. There she stood in the doorway. I heard the mission bell. I was thinking to myself, this could be heaven or this could be hell. Then she lit up a candle, showed me the way. There were voices down the corridor, heard them say, welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. Plenty of room at the Hotel California. Any time of year, you can find it here. Her mind is Tiffany twisted. She's got that Mercedes Benz. She got a lot of pretty, pretty boys. She calls friends. How they danced in the courtyard. Sweet summer sweat. Some dance to remember, some dance to forget. So I called up the captain. Please bring me my wine, he said. We haven't had that spirit here since 1969. Still those voices are calling from far away. Wake you up in the middle of the night just to hear them say, welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. They're living it up at the Hotel California. What a nice surprise. Bring your alibi. Mirrors on the ceiling, pink champagne on ice. We are all just prisoners here of our own device. And in the master's chambers, they gathered for a feast. They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. Had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man. We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely face. They're living it up at the Hotel California. What a nice surprise. Bring your alibis.
Hi, welcome everyone. It is Thursday, May 6, 2021. And I can tell you that it's a pretty crazy day for me so far. Haven't been able to just take a breath, I guess. It's been a little bit of a wild morning. I thought I'd start today's show. My guest is currently in a meeting. And maybe it'll be 2 guests. Maybe it'll be 3. Who knows? We're waiting to see how that comes up. But I wanted to show you just how definitions are changed. That's how I wanted to start today. It's important that you guys realize how definitions change. They tell you how they are creating an infrastructure. They are explaining to you how infrastructure is important, but they're actually redefining it. And I think it's important that you hear it for yourself and see it. So this woman here is the only Democrat that has held a seat in the state of Ohio. This is Marcia Fudge. She is a horrific legislator. I have no idea how she's actually in office. And she's now the secretary. So I want you guys to listen to what she says infrastructure means today. This is key because it's all about changing your reality. Now, we spoke about this when I introduced you to the concept of reality hacking, changing one's reality. It's competing truth versus your version of truth, or their version of truth, or the version of truth that the majority believe is true, or better yet, the truth that your overlords tell you is true. Listen to this.
At some point, you realize that infrastructure is a foundation. Housing is one of the most important foundations that any family or any person has. 11 million or so people in this country are paying more than 50% of all of their income towards rent. That is not affordable. Affordable means I can live decently and do all the other things that are necessary for me to have a decent life. When COVID first entered our lives, the one thing they said to people was stay home. So if you didn't have a home, you had a problem. Our children were learning virtually. So if they didn't have high-speed internet or broadband, they could not learn. What we have created is a generation of young people who will be forever behind if we don't provide them the tools necessary to get ahead. How we care for each other, that is a caring infrastructure. We take care of our seniors and we take care of our children. That is what we do every day. Those foundations make us who we are. This is still America. This is still the country that leads all other nations. If we don't take the bold steps now, when we have the resources and the opportunity and the will, we will never be a country we believe we are. If you'd like to learn more about the American Jobs Plan, please go to whitehouse.gov/American Jobs Plan.
Right. So now, if you guys didn't know, infrastructure under this administration means caregiving, childcare, healthcare, and schools. It has nothing to do with bridges, buildings, roads, sewage, water, or anything like that. I mean, how dare you even question that? This is where we're at. This is what infrastructure is today. Today, they have redefined infrastructure as human infrastructure. Because remember, it is human infrastructure that they need in order to be able to continue what they are doing. And you know what's what's incredible is watching other legislators school other corrupt legislators as they should.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's May 5th, and this is our first full committee hearing. There's a crisis at the border. The president is talking about abolishing ICE. Our local communities are being threatened by the left's movement to defund the police. You're trying to pack the Supreme Court. The teachers union are stopping kids from going to school. President Biden is bankrupting the country one omnibus bill at a time, and a virus continues to threaten our civil rights. but the House Judiciary's first full committee hearing this Congress is oversight of the Copyright Office. Now, look, we mean no offense to Register Perlmutter and the important work her office is doing. In fact, copyrights are a critical part of the U.S. economy, and it's an area ripe for bipartisan work. America's creators and distributors deserve our attention to make sure this is a well-functioning marketplace. We're all proud of the major pieces of copyright legislation that were signed into law in recent years, some that the chairman just talked about, including the Music Modernization Act and the CASE Act. And hopefully this is just the beginning. Last Congress, we began important work looking into Section 512 and other areas of the DMCA that can be improved. And it is our hope that consensus legislation can be identified and actually signed into law. We must keep a watchful eye over the collection and distribution of unclaimed royalties under the Music Modernization Act to ensure that trade associations and big publishers and wealthy artists are not profiting on the back of those without the means to access the money that they are owed. Rampant online piracy of copyrighted movies, TV shows, music, and other content by criminals in China, Russia, and elsewhere must also be stopped, and bold steps taken to fight it, such as the felony streaming law we passed late last year. We must continue to look for ways to improve and modernize the copyright system so that it can continue to be the engine for job creation and economic growth for decades to come. I look forward to working with the Copyright Office. We've had a nice conversation with Ms. Perlmutter to take action on all of these vital issues, and appreciate that this hearing is an opportunity to help that along. But I hope that the chairman will finally start to pay similar attention to the many urgent problems facing Americans today, problems I hear about every single time I'm out in our district, as I am today, as many of our colleagues are, problems that Americans want us to address, want us to deal with. I hope we get to them soon, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Without objection, all other opening statements will be included in the record. I will now introduce today's witness. Shira Perlmutter is the Register of Copyrights and Director of the U.S. Copyright Office.
All right, so that's where I wanted to take it. So before we go there and we talk about copyrights and intellectual property and how quick they move when we say something, I wanted to show you what the dictionary says is infrastructure, just in case anybody's confused that they're changing definitions. By definition, in the dictionaries across the planet for now, it clearly states that infrastructure is the system of public works of a country, state, or region. Also, the resources such as personnel, buildings, or equipment required for an activity. The underlying foundation or basic framework as of a system or organization, or the permanent installations required for military purposes. These are the definitions according to Merriam-Webster. Now, think of it this way. Are you public works? Are you the basic framework to what organization? The human organization that they are claiming is now infrastructure, not your roads, right? Not the buildings, not the bridges, but you, the people, are now infrastructure. Now you are a good. Now you are a commodity. Now they are moving along with that. Speaking of intellectual property, I wanted to show you this. Let me pull it up. So those of you that are on online can see it. Give me a second. I need to log into Twitter and get it. There we go. Get to Ilhan Omar. Because what's incredible is that suddenly they changed their tune on the intellectual property of vaccines, because that's an impeachable offense. I wanted to find where it is, where she said, there we go. Here we go. This is pretty interesting, you guys, because we talked about this. All right, let's pull this up. And technical difficulties, give me a second. Here we go. Here we go. And let me try to zoom in for you. How it started and how it's going waive the vaccine patents, fund vaccine distribution worldwide. Lives are on the line. These extraordinary times and circumstances of call for extraordinary measures. The U.S. supports a waiver of intellectual property protections on COVID-19 vaccines to help the pandemic and will actively participate in the World Trade Organization negotiations to make that happen. Oh, you mean they don't want to get this administration impeached? Because it is an impeachable offense. Impeachable, and we talked about this yesterday, and so be it that yesterday they were like, dang, they can impeach us for this. Yes, we can, because you can't bribe people to make decisions about their health care with money and tax cuts. Because if that's the case, that you're allowed to do that, then we should refund all those corporations for the past, 30, 40 years that we have been suing and filing and investigating and making them pay millions of dollars for doing it. This is an impeachable offense. But now, by them releasing the intellectual property, it means that other pharmaceutical companies will be able to use this. Therefore, our case against Pfizer being used as their piggy bank, making all this money, isn't enough. It's called bribery, pretty much. That's basically what it is. They're bribing us to take a vaccine, and now they realize that this is an impeachable offense. So they decided maybe we need to remove this intellectual property issue because, that's a problem. Speaking of problems, Jim Jordan made it clear that the unions have been working with the Democrats to keep children away from school. And not only that, they're actually misinforming, miseducating, and forcing children to abide by rules and regulations that don't make sense. So I wanted to play this clip from Fox, Failing Our Children. Take a listen to this.
Welcome back. The White House doubling down on their defense of the CDC after emails showed the agency took word for word recommendation from one of America's largest teachers unions. Our next guest argues this could be a winning issue for the GOP in 2022. It's what they're about. Here to explain, Wall Street Journal columnist and Fox News contributor Jason Riley. Jason, if the Republican stands for anything, it's for putting the kids first, and it's for school choice. Both these things line up to the actions of Democrats. How?
Well, we know, Brian, that unions exist for the benefit of their members, whether we're talking about auto workers or hotel workers or prison guards. The difference with the teachers' unions is that for years they pretend that their interests line up perfectly with those of our children. And the pandemic really exposed what a lie that is. The teachers' unions were looking out for their own interest. Our kids suffer academically from these lockdowns, mentally, physically, and so forth. And the teachers' unions could care less. They're simply using it as leverage to get more pay, more benefits, and so forth. And I think this is something that the Republican Party should not let the public forget. They should remind them of this constantly until the midterm elections, take this message into the community, and explain to them why the teachers' unions are looking out for themselves and not for our children.
And Jason, instead of opinion, you have the emails, and you say, don't just say, make these announcements and talk to your constituents. Go out to places that didn't vote for you. Go on Black radio, go on Black television, go into minority communities, explain how you are different, and explain what unions have left your kids behind. For example, teachers unions gave out $40 million to Democratic causes, to the Biden coffers specifically. And this is their payback. Where are kids in this picture? Republicans need to explain that.
Absolutely. And as you said, they need to take this message directly to these communities. Don't go through the activists. Don't go through the civil rights organizations like the NAACP and so forth. Go directly to the people. Go to the barbershops. Go to the community centers and advertise, yes, on Black radio and television and social media outlets. Take this message directly to the people. And I think they will find a very receptive audience here. Blacks and Hispanics in particular favor school choice. They long have favored school school choice in polls. And what the Republican Party needs to explain to them is how school choice is the best response to how the teachers unions treated their children this past year.
And Jason, that's what vouchers are about. I'm going to give you this voucher. Go to the school that's best for you. Democrats say, no, we'll tell you where to go. Oh, and by the way, that school for the last 14 months has been closed. When you go to school, your teacher's on remote. That's what they chose to do and allow your kid to lose more ground in this marketplace.
Yes, exactly. They have not been following the science, following the facts. You know, the irony here, Brian, is that the children themselves have held up pretty well against the virus. The most damage done to our kids, Brian, has been from the so-called experts and their ridiculous mandates. They've done much more harm to the kids than the actual virus. And again, Republicans need to take this message directly to these communities. And again, this isn't an identity politics issue like the left uses to go after minority voters. This is a principled stance on education. If you want to do something about violent crime, if you want to do something about drug abuse and teen pregnancy and all the rest, get kids a decent education. And that's what this is about. And the unions are not interested in that. They are interested in doing what is best for their members.
Right.
And that is not what these families need.
Yeah, this is one of those things where sometimes you grab an issue and say it's good for me, and sometimes you're about that issue and it happened. And that's what it is. This is about schools, education, putting kids first over unions. Teachers are great. The unions aren't. And that's what the message has to go. Republicans have to stop trying to maximize the vote they have and try to get the votes they don't have. And that's what your column's about. Jason Riley, thanks so much.
The unions. The unions are the ones that took home the whole election selection. The unions, AFL-CIO, actually houses teachers' unions, post office unions, and every union you can think of is pretty much under that umbrella. It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. It's it's showing you exactly who they are. And you know, the more you look at what they're saying, the more you realize just how far gone it is. My daughter currently in school is reading 1984. I'm actually surprised her teacher put that out there. And you know what she says? Holy crap. The people in this book are stupid. It's like, can't they see that they're slaves? And she says, I think the adults in this book would be my generation. And that's correct. That is correct. The generation now in high school and middle school are the adults of Orwell's dystopia of 1984. They have been trained so, very trained so, right? You see it every single day when you're out, the crazy Karens. In my building, a new lady moved in, and I saw her alone in the parking lot, fumbling with her little cart to bring her things up. And I was like, hey, Phoebe, let's just wait here so she's not alone at night in the parking. Not that it's not secure. There's cameras, but you never know, right? So she gets into the elevator. She's like the most granola munching redhead you've ever seen. Her mask, Black Lives Matter. And it was just like, and she's a teacher. And it's like, okay, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. These are the people that are educating our kids. She started talking. Me and Phoebe kind of just like, we're like, yeah, okay, hurry up, elevator. Let's get out of here. These people believe that we should be obeying whatever the overlords say. These people are the ones that are telling us how to operate, how to work, how to think, and how to walk. It is the most insane twist of values and ethos of this nation. It is just, it makes me sick. And the racism, the fact that we're all judging each other on the color of our skin is even worse. And it's coming from the people that are claiming that they're being hurt by that. But if you're white, you can't even apply for some jobs.
Well, folks, leave to the Biden administration to politicize the most bipartisan issues and gaff Joe Biden's way through it. That's what he did. Today, Joe Biden held a news conference to give an update on his $28.6 billion restaurant revitalization fund, federal relief that struggling restaurants, bars, and other venues can apply for. It allows owners to apply for up to $10 million per business. But there's a catch here. Under the guidelines of this fund, the relief is being prioritized, are you ready for this? Based on race and gender. Of course it is. This is what they do. And if business owners are considered socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, well, they're put to the top of the list. So the Small Business Administration lists on its website women, veterans, and disadvantaged people as a priority. Translation, white men who are not veterans, apparently you're not eligible. Here's how the Biden administration is defining socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. Part of an economically disadvantaged Indian tribe, subject to racial, ethnic prejudice or cultural bias. Black American, Hispanic American, Native American, Asian American. But
Wait a minute. Did they say that subjected to racial or ethnic prejudice or cultural bias? Well, I guess we all fit in that box. Culturally, we believe in America first. Culturally, right? We believe in the foundations of this nation. So I guess we're all victims too. I mean, I'm subjected to cultural bias because I love America. I'm just saying. But I want to point out, we already know that Biden is indeed a racist, right? He thinks black and brown children are not as smart as white ones. And he also supported segregation, right? But now he's putting out a racist policy. This is excluding anyone that doesn't fit that, is not allowed to get any aid. Hello? When are we going to start impeaching people? Where is Congress right now? Where is Congress right now? That's what you should be asking. Where are they?
Native American, Asian American. But folks, the China virus affected all Americans and all restaurants in this country at the same time. No matter if the owners are black, white, Asian, Indian, man, woman, who cares? If you're an employee, do you really care what color your boss is? You just want to go to work. All of it makes no sense to me unless you're playing politics, right? Which appears to be what the Democrats only want to do. Well, joining me now is Democrat political strategist and author of the book, The End of Democracy. Doug Schoen is here. Doug, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me, Grant.
Doug, this doesn't really seem to make any sense unless you're just trying to stick people in the side with a sharp stick.
Grant, I believe you help people based on need, and that's economic need. You're exactly right. We in this country have an obligation to those in affected businesses, like restaurants, certainly to provide help. The legislation is a step definitely in the right direction, but it should be based on economic need, not gender or race. I have no problems recognizing that there still is gender-based discrimination and racial discrimination, but the way you redress an economic problem that a restaurant or bar or tavern has is based on real need, not based on gender or race. That has nothing to do with the need a restaurant is or is not facing.
If you're trying to open restaurants and bars back up, I have to believe there are some Black and Hispanic employees that may work for white owners. If you're not helping the white owners open back up, well, you're hurting those minority employees and vice versa through all of this. So, I always get heat for having you on the show, Doug. I know you know this, right? But I want to get inside the mind of a Democrat. So you're a strategist for them. What are they doing here? What is Joe Biden's motivation for coming up with a scheme like this?
Grant, I grew up in the era